Okay, tonight we are going to be reading an excerpt from a book, The School Story. This was written by Andrew Clements, and go ahead and turn in your books to page 20. We're going to be reading about the author and the illustrator before we actually dive into the text. At the top of page 20, where it says in black, Meet the Author, go ahead and start tracking with your finger so you can follow along as I read. Meet the Author, Andrew Clements. How has Andrew Clements written over 50 books, including such popular school stories as Frindle, The Landry News, and Lunch Money? He explains, you don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to know every story is going to end. You just have to take that next step. Look for the next idea. About the illustrator. Meet the illustrator, C.F. Payne. C.F. Payne is known for his ability to make a picture look very real and very funny at the same time. In 1999, he completed a mural for Cincinnati Playhouse in the park in his hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio. The mural depicts actors and playwrights whose work has been performed in that theater. All right, the school story is about a young girl, Natalie, who wants to write a book. And this excerpt is about her friend Zoe and the two of them trying to get her book published at the same place that Natalie's mom is an editor. So our story is picking up kind of in the middle of the novel, but this is a realistic fiction book. And again, this is realistic fiction because these characters and events could actually happen in real life. Go ahead and turn to page 21. And as you read, I want you to be thinking about the essential question, which is at the bottom of 21. How can the choices you make affect relationships with other people? Go ahead and turn the next page. I'm at the top of 22. Natalie Nelson's widowed mother, Hannah, is a children's book editor at Shipley Junior Books. Hannah's boss, Letha, is pressuring her to find a school story that will become the company's next best-selling book. Natalie thinks The Cheater, a novel she just wrote, could be that book, but she doesn't want to disclose her true identity. Natalie's friend, Zoe Reisman, comes up with a daring plan. Turn Natalie into author Cassandra Day and Zoe into her agent, ZZ from Sherry Clutch Agency. All Natalie has to do is make sure her story ends up with Hannah, rather than with Hannah's coworker, Ella, keeper of unread manuscripts. Natalie got off the elevator at Shipley Junior Books at 4:25. She walked to the desk and handed a thick brown envelope to the receptionist. Natalie smiled and said, "A messenger brought this. It's for my mom. Do you need to check it in, or can I take it right back to her?" He looked at the address label and said, "All it needs is a date stamp and my initials." The stamp made a mechanical ka-chonk sound, and he pressed it into the front of the envelope, and then he scribbled his initials below the date. Now the package looked official. "Here you go." He handed the envelope back to Natalie, then pushed the security button to open the door for her. Natalie wound her way through the maze to her mom's office. Her mouth was dry. Even though she'd been here 100 times, she felt like a spy sneaking into a strange building. I wonder why she felt like a spy. "Hi, Mom." As her mom swung her chair around and smiled, Natalie glanced at the phone console on the desk beside the computer screen. The message waiting light was dark. That meant her mom had already listened to ZZ's message. "Here," Natalie said, and she handed the envelope to her mom. "This is for you." Hannah Nelson looked at the envelope. The large address label was printed in bright green ink. She read the return address aloud. "The Sherry Clutch Literary Agency? I just had a message from this agent, but I don't think I know her. Oh well." And she dropped the envelope onto the papers beside her computer. "Could you get me a juice or something, Natalie? I didn't even stop for lunch today." Natalie returned with 2 bottles of apple juice and some shortbread cookies. Her mom held up her bottle for a toast. And when Natalie clinked, her mom said, "Here's to our weekend." At that moment, Letha walked in. She stepped across the space carefully and leaned over to look at Hannah's computer screen. Natalie caught the sharp scent of Letha's perfume and took a step backward. With a strained smile, Letha said, I love the weekend too, but I don't think it's quite here yet. Have you double-checked all those revisions, Hannah? The production manager is calling for me for that text every half hour, and we can't get out of here until it's released. Glancing around Hannah's workspace, she snatched up the new envelope and said, What's this? Hannah said, It's just a manuscript. Must be a new agency. Sherry something. Letha read the label. Sherry Clutch. Oh, yes, I believe I've heard of her. She's supposed to be very bright. Listen, buzz me the second you're sure all the revisions check out, okay? And I want you to give this a look over the weekend. Letha dropped the envelope on Hannah's lap and swept out of the office. Hannah shook her head and gave Natalie a wry smile. So much for the weekend, eh? Listen, I've got to get back to work. Tim is probably gone by now, so can you hang out over there, okay? Natalie said, Sure, Mom. As she walked over to Tim's cubicle, Natalie tried not to smile. The editorial director of Shipley Junior Books just had pretended that she knew all about the Sherry Clutch literary agency, and then she had ordered her best editor to read a novel written by a 12-year-old. Alone in Tim's office, Natalie grinned. For the first time ever, she was glad that her mom's boss was a fire-breathing, stuck-up know-it-all. After Letha told my mom to read the manuscript, Cassandra Day couldn't wait to tell her agent about the unexpected development. Natalie actually picked up the phone in Tim's office and dialed half of Zoe's number. Then she stopped and asked herself, Do I really want Zoe calling me every 5 minutes all weekend long, asking me has she read it? Has she read it yet? Natalie hung up the phone. Then she picked it up and dialed the number again. Zoe deserves some kind of progress report. But she doesn't need to know everything. Bad enough that one of us has to worry the whole weekend. Zoe Reisman's room at the Reisman residence. Zoe Reisman speaking. I'm going to reread that because I didn't read it very fluently. So go back to the quotation marks. Zoe Reisman's room at the Reisman residence. Zoe Reisman speaking. Natalie kept her voice low because her mom's office was only 10 feet away. Zoe? It's me. The manuscript is here. It's in my mom's office. Zoe was excited. Great! Is she going to read it? Did she listen to my message? Do you think she suspects anything? I know she got your message, and she doesn't suspect a thing, and I'm pretty sure she's going to read it. So we'll just have to see what happens next. You know, said Zoe slowly, you could maybe help things along. You know, like pick up the envelope and say, I wonder if this one's any good. Something like that. Natalie smiled, but she talked in a serious voice. She wanted Zoe to calm down. No, I think we better just let things move ahead on their own. If there's no action in a week or so, then maybe you can call her again. Zoe did not like that idea. A week? Are you crazy? A week is forever. If I don't hear from her in 3 days, then I'm going to turn the heat up. Way up. Look, ZZ, relax. I've got to get off the phone now, but I'll let you know if anything else happens, okay? Zoe said, Hey, maybe you could offer to read it for her. You know, help out around the office. Zoe, said Natalie. No. Just be patient. Yeah, said Zoe. Easy for you to say. No, it isn't easy for me to say, Zoe. I want to know what she thinks about it as much as you do. But we're just going to have to let it move along one step at a time, okay? There was a pause, and then Zoe said, Okay, you're right. I guess. I'll call you if there is any news, I promise. Okay, said Zoe. Bye. I'm at the top of page 26. When they finally left the office at 7:15 on Friday night, Natalie could see the envelope from the Sherry Clutch literary agency sticking up from the outside pocket of her mom's briefcase. Natalie tried to think. She tried to decide what she was feeling. She couldn't figure out if she was happy or scared or numb or what, because what Zoe had said at the very beginning was true now. All of a sudden, her mom wasn't just her mom. She was her editor. Hannah Nelson would be the first person to read The Cheater in a professional way. Her own mom, would be comparing Natalie's story to all the other manuscripts she had read during the past 5 years at Shipley Junior Books. Manuscripts written by successful, established professional authors. Part of Natalie wanted to snatch the envelope out of her mom's briefcase and toss it into the trash barrel. But it was too late for that. The day of judgment had arrived. But that day wasn't Friday. Friday night, when they got home, Natalie and her mom went right out again and ate at a Chinese restaurant, and then caught a late movie at the local theater. One of those British movies where half the actors wear fancy clothes and the other half look like beggars. It was a lively story with plenty of action and a little bit of romance, but Natalie couldn't stay focused on it. Her mind kept wandering back to the envelope, still in the briefcase, sitting on a chair in the entryway of their loft. And Saturday wasn't Judgment Day either. In the morning, they went grocery shopping, and then there was the laundry, and then they both spent 2 hours cleaning the loft from one end to the other, and then it was dinner time. Natalie went to her room to read after dinner, hoping that if she left her mom alone, she'd remember the manuscript. At about 9 o'clock, Natalie opened her bedroom door and walked softly toward the living room area. Peeking from behind the big, leafy plants that framed the living room, she saw her mom. She was asleep on the couch, feet propped up on the coffee table, open magazine on her lap, bathed in flickering light from the muted TV. I'm at the top of page 28. Lying in bed later, Natalie tossed and turned. She thought about the heap of envelopes stacked up in Ella's darkened office. For every envelope there was a person somewhere, and Natalie knew how each of them felt. Those people were out there tonight, sleeping in hundreds of different beds in hundreds of different towns, in dozens of different states. Every day each person woke up and thought, maybe the editor will read my story today, or maybe the editor will call me today. Every day each writer wondered if the mail would bring a letter. Maybe good news from New York City. And Natalie felt guilty. Her envelope wasn't in a heap somewhere in a dark office. Her story was in the editor's briefcase. The editor's boss had assigned her story as homework. Natalie sat up in bed and looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. She groped for the phone on her bedstand and punched the glowing buttons. Zoe answered on the third ring, groggy and grumpy. "Hello?" "It's me, Zoe. I've got to tell you what happened." It took Natalie about 2 minutes to tell Zoe how her story found its way home with the editor for the weekend. Zoe was wide awake now. "So she read it? Did she like it? What did she say when she finished it? Come on, tell me. "Well, she hasn't read it. Not yet." "She hasn't read it? So why did you call me in the middle of the night?" Natalie hesitated. Because I feel bad. I feel like the girl in my book. I feel like I'm a cheater too. And those other stories at my mom's office, stories that she'll never even look at. And here's my story, and it's all the way up at the head of the line. It doesn't feel fair. That's all." "Not fair? Who said things are fair? It's never fair, Natalie. You're a great writer, and someone like me isn't. Is that fair? Is it?" "Well, no, I guess not," said Natalie. "But you're great at things I stink at." "Exactly," said Zoe. "It all evens out. It seems unfair, but it's not. Your mom is a good editor at a good publishing company, and someone else's mom isn't. Is that fair?" "No, not really." "Of course it's not fair. It's just the way it is. Didn't you have to work hard to write your books? Just as hard as those other writers did?" Natalie nodded as she answered, "Yeah, I did. I worked hard." "So do you know why your book is going to get looked at and some of those others aren't? It's because you are who you are, and your mom is who she is, and you worked hard to write a great book." Zoe paused to let that sink in. Then she said, "And there's another reason your book will get published, and most of those others won't." Natalie asked, "Why's that?" In her best agent voice, Zoe said, "Because you have a great agent, and those other schnooks don't. Now listen, Cassandra. I'm giving you good advice, you hear me? You hang up now and get a good night's sleep, and just stop thinking so much. You artists are all alike, thinking. Not to worry, darling. Zizi is going to take good care of you." After hanging up, Natalie felt better, but it still took her another hour to get to sleep. And even after her lecture to Cassandra, Zizi lay awake, doing some thinking of her own. I'm at the top of page 31. Then on Sunday, it happened. It was late in the afternoon, and after finishing her math and English, Natalie settled into her beanbag chair to read about ancient Egypt in her social studies book. The chair was so comfortable, and she had stayed up too late the night before. The next thing Natalie knew, her mom was shaking her awake. "Natalie, you won't believe this. You know this manuscript Letha made me bring home? Well, I opened it up, just so I could tell her I looked at it, and I started reading it. And it's just, well, I couldn't stop reading. It's one of the best things I've read in a long time. And besides that, it's even a school story. Isn't that great?" Natalie wanted to throw her arms around her mom's neck and burst into tears. She wanted to say, "It's mine, Mom. I wrote that. I wrote it for you. And I wrote it for Dad. And I'm so happy that you like it." But she couldn't. So she didn't. Instead, Natalie gulped, and she smiled and said, "That's great, Mom. So it's really good?" Her mom nodded excitedly. "It's got such a wonderful feeling all through it. I mean, it needs some work here and there. But this Cassandra Day, that's the author. It's her first novel, and for her first novel, it's terrific. I can't wait for you to read it." And Natalie nodded and said, "I'd love to." All right, that was the end of the story. Make sure that you've read it and completed your active reading assignment, and we will discuss this and write about it on Monday morning. Have a good weekend.